The power of positive thinking. Have you heard that phrase before? I heard it a lot when I was young, but I'm not sure how much it's talked about anymore. Power of Positive Thinking was actually the title of a book written 75 years ago by Norman Vincent Peale. Basically, his book argued that changing your thoughts and maintaining an optimistic mindset could directly help overcome personal challenges and bring success, however you might define success. So this is a fine idea. It's kind of hard to argue with it. But if you know anything about me, you know I'm always drawn to the opposite side of whatever anyone else holds true. If people say life is short, I want to consider the possibility that life is actually long. If people say men are simple, they only want one thing, I want to think through the possibility that men are actually really complicated and have all kinds of conflicting desires. So when people talk about the power of positive thinking, my mind immediately wonders, could there possibly be such a thing as the power of negative thinking? Now, I don't say that just to be contrarian, to disagree for the sake of disagreeing. I do it because I think important possibilities get ignored when everyone agrees on one perspective. The truth of any situation is always complex, but human beings have a powerful urge to simplify. And I get that. Simplification makes life easier and more efficient. But if you're the kind of person looking for an edge, you'll always want to look where everyone else isn't looking. And the easiest way I've found to do that when I encounter a concept everyone thinks is right is simply to ask myself, what if the complete opposite was true? That negation won't always yield a usable perspective, of course, but it will always lead you to some interesting places. While I'm naturally a very positive person, I have noticed that negative thinking has been sort of like a co-pilot on my journey so far. For example, it's been a big part of my mindset whenever I've competed for new business. Let me explain. Without going into too much detail, my company is mostly built on multi-year contracts, generally totaling a few $100,000 or a few $1 million each. Those contracts are awarded through a tendering process where the customer asks for sealed bids from companies like mine that it thinks are qualified to do the work. It's a lot of pressure. First of all, these proposals are difficult to prepare. Answering all their questions can be almost like writing a book. And figuring out your pricing requires a lot of calculation because the situations are pretty complex. If your bid is too high, you'll probably lose. And if your bid is too low, you can end up losing money for the duration of the contract. So how did negative thinking serve as my co-pilot through these experiences? Well, on every one of these tenders, I've always asked myself, what if I fail? What if my proposal isn't chosen? What if someone else wins? What if I go through all this effort and get zero reward? And then I go a step further. I start assuming I'm going to lose. I think about how bad it will feel. I think about how I'll have to cut costs, about which employees I might have to lay off, about how I'll have to make do with less personal income. I process the disappointment, or to put it another way, I make peace with failure. Now, I'm pretty sure all the power of positive thinking people, like Norman Vincent Peale, would say, no, Don, don't do that. Your negative expectations will actually create a negative outcome. Be positive. But you know what? I've participated in approximately 25 of these tender processes over the years, and I've only lost 2. That's a greater than 90% success rate. And actually, come to think of it, the 2 I lost were on issues of principle, so I don't even feel bad about them. And yes, in each one of those cases, I went through the whole process of assuming I was going to lose. So how can that possibly provide any kind of advantage? Well, I think there are actually 2 factors at work when I anticipate the worst. First of all, when you let go of positive expectations, performance anxiety just sort of disappears. Once you've embraced losing, so to speak, and figured out how to live with it, you relax. And relaxed people just perform better. They don't make dumb mistakes because fear and panic aren't clouding their judgment. Second of all, when you fully anticipate a negative outcome, desperation vibes disappear. That might sound a little woo-woo, but hear me out. Making a sale is a form of seduction. You're asking to play an important role in the working life of another human being, in this case, a corporate decision maker. And I hope you know that nothing undermines any kind of seduction like appearing to want the prize really, really badly. Acting too eager to impress makes you look weak, and weak individuals just do not make appealing partners. That applies just as much in business as it does in romance. A person who has already contemplated losing, who has made peace with it in their own imagination, no longer has anything to fear. They come across as less needy, more confident in themselves, more self-possessed, and therefore more appealing. It's a paradox of relationship psychology that exuding that "I can live without you" vibe is always attractive. Now, you've probably picked up on the fact that contemplating failure doesn't equal giving up, at least not for me. I actually kept trying really hard to win, even once I'd accepted the possibility of losing. I believe human beings are fully capable of holding two contradictory thoughts in their heads without paralysis setting in. For me, those two separate thoughts are always the same. I am in control of my work, but I am not in control of how my work will be judged. I will always do my best to produce good work, even though it may not ultimately be appreciated by others. In all of these tender situations, I knew our proposal was good and I knew we could do a great job at the actual work, but I didn't know for sure if the client would see it that way. People are weird, circumstances are complex, so I just focused on the quality of my work and let go of the result. Oh, and I did nothing but win. Like everything I talk about on this channel relating to business, I believe the lessons apply in other areas of our experience as well. Life is not a series of separate boxes we enter and exit. Everything's connected. That's why I believe the power of negative thinking can help even in a romantic relationship, just as much as it can help in business. This might sound radical, but my wife and I actually talk through the what ifs of divorce regularly. We're actually a very happy couple, but we've never been shy to calmly talk through what a separation would look like, who would get what kinds of people we would date once we were single again, etc. Again, I'm sure this sounds insane to the power of positive thinking people. It seems like most people feel relationships are so fragile that even considering the possibility of splitting up could cause a total marital breakdown. But that's not how it is for us. So why would we even do this thing? Why would we flirt with disaster? Well, just like in business, it's healthy to consider how you will respond if something you can't truly control doesn't play out the way you'd like. Marriage is not a democracy. In every relationship, both parties have a unilateral veto. They can end it without asking the other person for their opinion. So many people live in such extreme fear of this reality that it distorts the way they interact with the person they are supposed to be in love with. Jealous behavior is obviously the worst manifestation of that extreme fear. Those efforts at control, the restrictions and suspicions that feel like a way of protecting the connection, only make the other person more interested in escape. For us, talking about the end with empathy and curiosity makes it way less likely to happen. It actually neutralizes that grass is always greener fallacy when you think through the reality of what hopping the fence would actually look like. That's the way it is for us anyway. There's another benefit to considering the possibility of your relationship ending, and that is the sense of renewal it can foster. Talking about what your partner would like in their next relationship allows you to become their next relationship. It's a way of re-encountering that person as an individual with evolving hopes and dreams that continue to change as the years go by. This kind of negative thinking can also serve as a diagnostic test, both for you and for the relationship. Question one, can you truly talk about anything? Can you listen calmly to your partner as they discuss life without you and with somebody else? It takes a lot of confidence in your relationship and yourself to handle that kind of thought experiment. If you don't have that confidence, you've probably got some work to do in building your bond. Question two is, are you truly each other's best relationship option? This is an important question that doesn't get addressed explicitly, but that can do a lot of damage floating below the surface. You know that "I could probably do better" or "you could probably do better" refrain. Finding out exactly what your partner would seek out if they had the chance to do it all over again can be helpful if you're ambitious to be their best option. In conclusion, I have to say that I don't know if everyone is capable of handling the power of negative thinking, either in business or in their relationship. Probably not, actually. It might just be too scary for some people to go there. Maybe it's because optimism comes so naturally to me that I can make use of pessimism as a kind of tool. Hopefully that's the case for you too. I guess what I want to leave you with is the idea that considering the downside of any situation isn't something to be avoided. In my experience, exploring the possibility of a bad outcome doesn't magically rule out the possibility of a good outcome. In fact, it might just make that good outcome more likely. Anyway, thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time today. If you appreciated my perspective, liking this video and subscribing to my channel would be really helpful. Have a great day.